Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the She Who Leads podcast. And in today's episode, we're talking about something very important in business and also in life, which is identities. Because even though if we know it or not, how our identity is, our current identity is basically shaping our entire reality. It's shaping how you are present in your business or how you are present in your career. It's shaping how you relate to others, how you decide about things, what decisions you make, what action steps you take. Those all come from your identity. And it is very much affecting the business that you are trying to build or you desire to build. And especially when it comes to the soul business, which is a business that is built around your purpose, your soul pool, how you have your identity, how you shape your identity, and what identities do you take on will basically make or break your business. So, in this episode, I am helping you navigate the whole world of identities, and also stay to the end because I am actually giving you steps that you can start with right now to actually get into the right identity that is able to build your business, that is able to not just build the business, but grow it to levels that you can't even imagine possible right now. Okay, so stay tuned until the end. That's coming. But to get there, we actually have to understand how identities work and how they actually relate to the day-to-day business life, for example. So, like I said, everything, basically everything in this world, boils down to identities. Success is an identity. Like, I identify myself as a person who has success, who can achieve success, who is successful to begin with. That is an identity. That people who have that actually tend to find success much easier because that way of being will shape their actions. And I will talk about this in detail, like what that means. But basically, that's the baseline of it. Money is the same thing. Money comes down to the identity. Do I have the identity of someone who is worthy of money? Do I have the identity of someone who is good with money? As someone who can grow money, as someone who deserves the money, as someone who is able to hold on to a lot of money. Those are all different identities connected to money, and this is just the tip of the iceberg that I usually work with in the coaching sessions with clients. Because again, when you step into those identities, and there's a concrete process that you can do to step into an identity, then you will behave differently. You will behave differently, for example, with money and all the things that were hard with money before, like basically not being able to hold on to that money or not being able to make more money. Those will fall into place, and because you take on the identity of someone who actually knows how to make more money, to someone who is actually going for making more money. Those are actually two separate things. But even when we go to building a business, that is very much going down to identities as well. Am I looking at myself as an entrepreneur? Do I believe that I have what it takes? Do I identify myself as someone who has the skills, the capabilities, the attributes, the knowledge, as someone who is able to create a business and make it successful? Am I associating myself with someone who believes that I have value to offer? I have value to offer to people that they will want to buy. That is also coming down to an identity that I either identify myself as or not. So what is basically an identity? Just to get on the same page with the definition. So basically, an identity is who we believe ourselves to be, right? Like who I see myself as. Basically, that's the very simple definition of it. And it is shaping every single decision and every single action that you do. Like your identity will determine how you make a decision, what are you choosing or not choosing for yourself, if you start a business or not, if you quit your job or not, if you leave a toxic relationship or not. Those all go and boil down to your identity. Now, your identity is basically shaped by your experiences. So whatever experiences you had, whatever you had as a conclusion of those experiences will basically shape your identity, which means, and that's the most fun part of it, that identities can be shifted. Just as you learned to be someone, you can just as easily learn to be someone else. Just as you associate yourself with an identity of I'm not good enough, I'm not valuable, I am not cut out to be an entrepreneur, I am not good with money, you can also associate yourself with identities that will actually help you grow and help you expand. Identities like I'm actually a born entrepreneur. I am built for success. I know how to build a business. I have the skills to build a business. Like these are all identities that you can take on when you have the right framework to do that. And we do that a lot in the coaching sessions. That is, I think, one of the biggest parts of the coaching that I do, because when you actually step into that identity, like really make it your own, embody that quality. And that's the difference between, saying the affirmations, for example, of, oh, I am good with money, I am good with money, and actually being that identity, like knowing and embodying that I am good with money, and then acting from that frequency, acting from that identity. That is a very, very different thing. And that's why it can feel like a lot of the times that affirmation don't work, because they don't really hit the right spot where, like thoughts become actions. And there's a whole science to this, a whole thing to the subconscious work and the nervous system work that goes into this whole identity shift and identity, let's call it expansion. Yeah, that's a nice way. Identity change, shift. Yeah, I like those words. So there's a whole lot of components to go into that, but actually it's a much more simple process that you would imagine it to be. And basically what you are shaping here is your self-image, you're shaping your nervous system, you're shaping your subconscious. Those are three very, very important pieces of any identity shift that you want to tackle. Why? Your self-image is basically how you perceive yourself to be and how you believe other people are perceiving you. So if you have gaps on that, if you believe that you're not valuable, if you believe that people think that you're not valuable, if you believe that, like I said, you're not cut out to be an entrepreneur, you will basically act from those beliefs. The nervous system part comes into play when we go to expansion and also when we are trying to get into action mode. So any healing that you want to do has to boil down to the level of the body and the level of the nervous system, because that's where all the emotions are stored. And if you don't release those emotions, those will basically keep you in a loop, because whenever you are being in a similar situation where you had a trauma, for example, and it reminds you of that trauma, then your nervous system will flare up, you get into fight or flight, and you are actually not in that identity of, oh, I am successful, but you get back to that identity of your 4-year self or 6-year self, where you, I don't know, were yelled at for not being perfect or not doing something perfectly. So you basically go back to that version of yourself and then start acting from that version of yourself. So you're not acting from the identity of, oh, well, I am a successful person. I know how to, for example, I know how to create more money. You will act from that 6-year-old version of yourself who is scared for her life or for her safety, and do whatever it takes to keep herself safe, which would mean like, oh, I'm not taking risks then because that's just too much. I am avoiding this situation. I am avoiding starting the business as much as I can because it's just too much. It's too unsafe. It's too much risk. My job right now is so much more comfortable, right? Like everyone has these patterns. Everyone has these basically trauma reactions from their previous life, and you need to unlock those to be able to step into a new identity. And the subconscious mind obviously comes into play here too, because a lot of our memories, a lot of our identities basically are stored in the subconscious. So a lot of us don't even know consciously who we are. A lot of the things are in the subconscious because there's just so much information. Just think about it. Like you are, like, let's say 20, 30, 40 years on this earth right now. Just like imagine if you would be able to remember every single minute of that 40 years or even just the 20 years. Like it would be so much noise in your head, even more than how much you have right now, how much we tend to have right now. Like there's just so much noise. So a lot of it gets stored in the subconscious. So actually we can access it when we really, really need to, or we can actually operate from that subconscious, identity most of the time, but those will be more like automated, like beings, automated operations, right? It's basically those situations where just like react automatically to something in a way that it just makes no sense to you, and then like you think like, okay, why did I do that? Like why did I react this way, like again, like for the 10th time? And that is basically an automatic subconscious reaction that you have, which is also shiftable. Like you can also go into the subconscious and shift those patterns, shift the identity there with the right framework and the right tool, which I actually teach in the coachings and give people in the coachings and in my coaching programs, because that is what will bring in the lasting change. That is what differentiates affirmations, which may or may not hit the self-image, but usually they don't even penetrate the self-image, and actual identity shifts that is hitting the self-image, changing the self-image, expanding the nervous system, and also rewriting the subconscious. Like those are the three components that needs to be there in any identity shift that you are doing. Otherwise it won't last. It won't even hit or won't even last. And like I said, your identity is basically like determining every single thing that you are doing or want to do, right? So some identities that can keep you from starting a business is, like I said, oh, I'm not the entrepreneur type. I don't know anything about business. I don't even know how to manage myself. I have no idea that can be translated into a business. I don't have anything that people would want to buy. Also, I'm not good enough. I'm not independent enough. I'm not a good problem solver. I'm not innovative. Like those are things that people associate themselves with as an identity that is actively keeping them from starting the business that they actually want to start. Because I am a firm believer, I'm truly a firm believer, that we are all meant to have businesses. We are either meant to have and create businesses from our purpose, or we are meant to attract people, like we are meant to join people who we have a very, very similar purpose with. And we have very few businesses that are that right now, very few businesses that are very purely led from someone's soul pool, and that you can basically uh, connect in or join in and you would feel fulfilled. There are out there a bunch of them. Like I know personally, like a couple of businesses who I know are actually built that way, and people who work there are actually fulfilled just by working there because they are very much synced with the owner's purpose. So that's a very, very real thing. And I really, really hope, and part of my work is supporting this type of business culture to flourish and thrive. But where the start is with you starting the business, with you stepping into your identity, who is ready to start a business, who knows her worth, who knows what she's capable of, who knows that she actually has a lot of value to give to people, and knows that she's perfectly cut out to start that business, which all of those are true for you. I would bet anything on that. If you're listening to this podcast, that's not a coincidence. Your soul is very much built to create that business, to create business around your soul pool and make that as a success. So the only missing piece here is that you have a lot of identities based on your previous experiences that made you believe that that is not true. And when you shift into the identities that will actually help you get back to your core self, which in a second I will explain what that is, when you step into those identities, then starting a business will become the most natural thing in the world. Like at this point, I still like remember before I started my first business when I was like 20 something, I think. Yes. Like before that, I was dead set on the belief that I am not the entrepreneur type. Like in my early 20s, I was like, there's no way. Like I had jobs, I worked at a corporate setting. I actually then worked at a startup. And still when I was working at the startup, I was like, but I'm just not, like, why would I give to people? Like I have no knowledge, I have no expertise. I am really not an expert on anything. Why would people come to me? Why would people want to buy anything from me? Like, how am I better than anything else? And this is a very beautiful example of how much your self-image that is, shaping your identity is affecting the choices that you make and how you actually see yourself and what you are capable of. Because back then, because my self-image was super, super low and I did not see my value, I did not see how I am special, and I had no clue about my capabilities and gifts and anything of sorts, I was sure set in the identity that I'm not cut out for an entrepreneur, that I wouldn't be able to handle the risk, that I wouldn't be able to build something from scratch, and that I wouldn't be able to make that as a success. And now, fast forward, I think 10 plus years, I'm actually building technically my third business, but like practically my my second business, because I'm building my global business right now with the soul business coaching. But anyhow, I am building my second business and I cannot even imagine my life any other way. Like I am so rooted into the identities of an entrepreneur, of a soulpreneur to be more on point, that I just like the thought of being employed is just no, like that's just not for me. I would do it if I had to, because I don't know why, but I would not ever choose that for myself. I would not ever choose that in a way of having like a full-time job. No, like that's just like gives me the shivers in the bad way possible. Like I know that every fiber of my being that I was actually cut out to be an entrepreneur. And now, because I did the work and I worked with figuring out, the self-image pieces that I needed to rewire my subconscious, to expand my nervous system, I know exactly why am I cut out to be an entrepreneur. I know the identity pieces that go into that, and I am super, super rooted into those identity pieces. And that is something that anyone is able to do when you have the right identity pieces, which can be also called basically ingredients. So this is basically the difference of you believing in yourself, like you believing something about yourself to be true that is either expanding you or contracting you, right? And again, nothing shifted in a way. Like I did not, like um, I did not take an entrepreneur course, for example. So how I got to become an entrepreneur, I actually worked on myself. I worked on my self-image. I worked on my capabilities. I worked on my gifts. And naturally, they actually led me to starting my own business. It wasn't like someone told me like, oh, you should be an entrepreneur, or me taking a course or taking a test or whatever. It was purely the identity work that I did that helped me become someone who was set on not being able to have a business, to become someone who actually built multiple businesses at this point in her life. And that can be easily you. Again, it all comes down to identities. The same goes for building the business. And I wanted to separate that because I think like the three parts or the three levels I like to uh, boil down business to is the first stretch is when someone gets to the point of I'm not starting a business to starting a business, right? Like that's the first stretch. Like when you have that, that's great. Like that's your first win there of like getting from a place of I'm not cut out to be an entrepreneur to starting your first business. That's great. That the second part comes when like, okay, I started my business. Now I need to build it because there's a building phase. Everything has a building phase. Just as you are growing a plant, the plant needs time to grow. The plant needs time to flourish, to get stronger, everything else. And this is the same for the business. So there will be a phase where you are putting in a lot of work and seemingly you are not getting a lot out. That's a very natural way of building a business. It's actually a very natural way of building a soul business because you need to acquire the skills, the knowledge, the identities and everything to then go to the next phase, which is the third one, is growing the business, right? That's when actually you already like have some traction. You have like building the business goes in my vocabulary until the point of, okay, you already have a couple of clients, you are already making money enough that you are safe with that business, even a little bit comfortable. I wouldn't really go until the point of like super comfortable. That comes when you are like, okay, now I get like the basics, I have a foundation that is seem to be working. Now how to scale that, to a level to I am like super comfortable with money, I am actually having time to test and play with stuff, like like create weird things that I just want to create to see how those work or don't, right? To expand into a what is called a team, like that's the point where you actually start to get team members. That's the point where you may actually start to think about building another business and I don't know, branching out or whatever, partnering up with someone. So that's a different part and again needs different identity, just as the building the business part needs a different identity, because a lot of people make believe that, okay, so I actually started the business because let's say I am good to go as an entrepreneur. Like you have that identity, you believe that about yourself, like yeah, I could make that work. And then goes the second part, which is the building phase, right? Where people tend to fall into the identities of, oh, I actually don't have the willpower for this. I actually don't have the time for this. That is actually also an identity what we take on. I'm not good at problem solving. I am not good at figuring things out on my own. Oh, I'm not good at solving challenges. I'm not good at marketing. I'm not good at sales. I'm not good at anything that basically would come as part of building the business. Like when you associate yourself with those identities, then the building the business phase will become a drag. It actually, that's the I think the biggest part where people tend to give up, because again, like you need to have the right identities on that part to be able to keep going, to be able to go when you try 10 times and it still doesn't work, and you need to have the identity that will try for the 11th time. You need to have the identity who is not afraid of mistakes. You need to have the identity who is ready to experiment with stuff, who is ready to pivot when something is not working. So there are, and just again, like these are just a tip of the iceberg of what we usually build in with business owners in terms of identities on the different phases. But basically, again, when you have these compared to when you don't, business could become easier. I still won't say that business will be easy, because building a business, it's built in that it has to be challenging. I'm not saying hard, it has to be challenging, because that's a way for you to grow. That's a way your soul chose to grow in this lifetime. And you need to be out of your comfort zone, especially in this building phase. So you acquire the skills, the knowledge, the, again, identities fast, and embody those fast. So then you can move on to the growth phase, again, which has its own set of challenges, right? Like just I mentioned, you will need to take on a team. You will actually move from maybe a coaching or like an expert role to more to a CEO role, right? You will move from being the healer to also being the CEO, which again, the CEO has very, very different identities of a business than an expert, right? Or like a solopreneur or a team lead. Like it is, I'm not saying night and day, but again, different identities. And a CEO needs to know that, okay, I can be in charge. I am an authority figure. Like that's an identity that you have to embody. You need to know that, okay, I'm good with people. Actually, I am respected. Like just, again, those are just some examples that people need to take on as an identity to be able to grow the business, to branch out. And a lot of the times what happens is actually people, if they get into the building phase, and that's why the growth phase doesn't really start, because they get stuck in the identity of, oh, actually I'm not as valuable. Like I am not. And what I tend to see a lot is just I'm not valuable. Like I don't really have anything unique to offer, anything valuable that is unique enough so people would want to buy from me. And those are actually very, very essential identities that we work, like basically those are the foundational identities of a soul business, like value and uniqueness and being the best in someone at something. And those will like follow you, support you, or hinder you throughout this whole process. Like even when starting the business, if you go back, I actually mentioned this, like, oh, this identity that people tend to have that keeps them from starting the business of, do I have anything to offer that people would want to buy? And that boils down to, am I valuable enough? And what I am good at, is that unique enough so people would want to buy from me, right? So if you see, just that identity actually follows through the whole process of building a business, and you need to constantly embody the identity that knows exactly what is the unique value that she is offering, right? And with the growing the business phase, there's also something that is very visible, which again comes from from usually a trauma, like the identity of, oh, I cannot take up a lot of space, which means that I cannot show myself, I cannot be this successful, I cannot make this much money. Like, how would that look? What would people think? We would believe that making money is only sunshine and rainbows, but a lot of the times, the main thing that blocks the growth phase of the business, is the fear of making a lot of money and the fear of actually having the success that I want to have. And again, that comes from the nervous system, that comes from all the traumas and the emotions that connect to that, and that is stored in the nervous system, which you, like I said, that's why the nervous system work is a very, very, very important piece of the identity shift. Because if you are not releasing those traumas around identities that you take on, or identities that you want to take on, then you won't be able to embody that identity. If you have a trauma around showing yourself, if you have a trauma, if you were abused, if you were hurt, if you were ridiculed because you were yourself at any point in your life, then you won't feel safe in the identity of, oh, I can actually show myself. I can show up in the most amazing version of who I am, and that will be fine. Because you believe on the body, on the level of the body, on the level of your nervous system, it's stored as an emotion in your body right now, that when you do that, when you show yourself and show how amazing and beautiful and magnificent you are, then something bad will happen. And you will do anything subconsciously and a lot of the time consciously to avoid that happening. So you won't show up as your best self. So you won't take up the space that you could take up, which means you won't grow the business. You won't make the decisions that maybe will land you the podcast guest appearance on the biggest podcast that you could go on. You won't go to the networking event that you are supposed to go on because it feels too overwhelming. You won't start your global tour of, I don't know, TEDx talks or whatever, because it would feel like too much for your nervous system. That's why. That's a very important piece of the identity work that I want you to understand, because it will make or break how you can shift into any new identity and any version of yourself that you want to shift into. And this is where it gets back to what I mentioned, the true self or our core self, which is basically the version of ourself without everything that, like all the conditioning that we took on, all of others' beliefs, others' fears, others' emotions. If you can strip that from yourself, if you could get off of yourself everything that you, on the belief and emotion and self-image and subconscious level, you could get off everything that is not yours, then you get your core self. That is the version of yourself who your soul designed you to be, your higher self designed you to be. That is the version of yourself who can, without a fail, without a doubt, actually create the soul business that you want to create. Find the purpose that you have and fulfill that purpose without eyelash of a doubt. That's maybe pushing it. You will always have doubt, but you have that version of yourself has all the capabilities. That version of yourself is already in you. Like, I don't want you to believe that, oh, actually, like, there's just someone outside of me. That's already in you. The work that you are doing and most of us are doing with the healing modalities is basically finding our way back to that version of ourselves, realizing who we are under all of these layers and piles of others' opinions and beliefs and emotions and everything else that you took on yourself. When you find your way back to that version, life and purpose and business actually gets to be much, much, much easier in ways and challenging in other ways. But it definitely will be more fun. Like, that's what I can promise you. It will definitely so much more fun to build your business, because it is coming from you, and all the energy and all the suffering and grinding that goes into building a business, that is usually coming from the fear of not being liked, or wanting to please people, or shrinking yourself down, or whatever else that you may be dealing with. Those take up a lot of energy and take away a lot of your energy. And when you strip those away as much as you can, and then you become yourself, then you be a vessel for source. Basically, you will channel like it's your second nature. You will share yourself without fear. You are operating from your heart space, which is such a beautiful, beautiful place to be in. And you can be so connected to your mission that actually work is something that is fun, that is your playground, that is your natural expression. Like, business becomes this source of joy and your way of naturally expressing yourself. And that is such a beautiful, beautiful way to create a business and be in a business. Wow, I love that so much. So what you can do right now is, I promised you some steps that you can take. So first things first, what I would love for you to do is, I would love for you to start noticing the identities that you are associating yourself to right now. So this will basically look like you getting a pen and paper and writing down every identity that you think you are right now. And I actually would go either for the quote unquote limiting well, yeah, limiting identities, and also the expanding identities. So just like write a list, have a two separate lists. Like, maybe you believe that you are not cut out for an entrepreneur, but maybe you have the identity of, oh, I actually am good with people. That can be easily a very, very good identity. Also in business. So just like list out all the different identities that you associate yourself with, and just like have a clearer picture than you have right now, because a lot of these are so automated and built in our day-to-day life that we don't even know that we have this as an identity. We just made ourselves believe that, oh, this is who I am and I cannot change that. But I promise you, every single identity that you took on that is not yours, you can shift that, you can release that. And there's a much better identity instead of that you can root into and embody, that will make your life so beautiful and amazing. So that's your first step. The second step, so, and again, I kind of went ahead myself. The first step is to list out all the identities that you think you have. A second step is, we will start to categorize these identities. Actually, you will start to categorize these identities. So ask yourself the question with every single identity that you wrote down: is this identity expansive? Like, does it feel like it expands me? Or is this limiting or contracting? Like, if I think of that, like, is this identity wanting to make me go for my goals? Does this identity want to make me an action step that feels good, right? Like, that could be something that is expansive. And when, like, the other side, does this identity make me feel small? Does this identity make me feel like I have to stay put and I cannot take a step towards what I want? Those will be your limiting identities, your contracting identities. And this awareness already will help you so much in just realizing, oh my God, which identity am I operating right now from? This will be a game changer in itself. And then I want you to answer this question as the third step, which is, what identities does the version of me have who built their soul business? So I want you to think about the version of yourself who already built and grew your soul business to the success beyond what you imagined possible. Okay? And then think about that version of yourself. And then I want you to write out the identities that you believe that version of yourself has. So maybe she's trusting herself, right? She's trusting her opinion over everyone else's. That could be an identity that she's taking on. And just like have this list, and I want you to pick one thing from that list, one identity from that list. And I want you to start to just like feel into that identity of, okay, what would I need to do right now? How could I be more this identity right now in my life? Maybe it would be not asking for, if we stay with the example of trusting my own opinion over everyone else's. So maybe I always ask for a feedback from my friends before I take an action step. So the next time I am making a decision, I am not asking for feedback. Or before I take an action step, I'm asking for feedback, but I am consciously choosing my opinion over everyone else's that I had. So there's just a lot of different ways that you can go with this. And again, like in the coachings, I help with that a lot to see like, okay, this is again like just the tip of the iceberg of how we start to work with identities, because like the embodiment part is works best when it's tailored to you, when it's tailored to your wording, it's tailored to your like wording in a sense of what lands very good with you, which I am actually very good at. Like that's one of my gifts, was just being able to exactly land, exactly phrase the identities and exactly phrase the action steps in a way that it would shift things very quickly. That's one of my superpowers. So I can help you with that if you need more help. But just like going through these 3 to 4 steps will help you so much to gain clarity and actually give you a starting ground of, okay, how I can, if I want to, how I can step into that identity that feels better, that feels expansive. So that's the process. Again, if you need help with that, I actually have a free clarity call, which you can book. You find the link in the description below. This is basically a complimentary coaching call for you, where we can actually look at the identities that you are in right now. So it will be a very interesting and fun thing for me and also for you if you do this exercise. And then with the result, you come to me with this free coaching call. And then we can look into like, okay, what is one identity of your soul CEO version, which we can incorporate right now that will actually bring you the furthest along. Like that's something that I would love to help you with. So if that's something that interests you, then book that free call when you're ready. But if you have any other thing that you want to figure out, like what could be your unique value, how can you, like, what is stopping you from starting the business, why are you stuck in the starting phase or the building phase or the growth phase, like there's just so many ways that we can start this whole process for you. Again, you can book a call in the free, you can book a call to the free clarity call. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. And we can see where you are and what do you need right now to move to that version of yourself, to move towards your soul pool business, your soul business. I would love to help you with that. But again, start with these steps that will help you so freaking much. Okay, thank you so much for being here. If you love your episode, if you love this episode, please make sure to like it or leave a review. That helps me so much in getting this message out there. And also, if you have a friend or a colleague or anyone who you feel like would benefit from this episode, and this is actually what they need to hear right now, make sure to share this with them, because this is not just helping them, like this is obviously helping them a lot, but also you help me with fulfilling this soul pool that I have myself, which is ironically enough, helping people build soul businesses. So thank you in advance for that. And I see you in the next episode. Bye.